Welcome to my channel, guys. Let's take a look at the month of March 2023 and the natural events and disasters that could happen on certain days. It's Weather on Earth 25, everybody, and we're taking a look at the next several weeks. It's currently March the 3rd, so we're going to take a look at today all the way till March the 31st, and we're going to have a look at the astrology and numerology that's behind these predictions. We're using astrology and numerology to pinpoint which days of the calendar are more likely to have certain events. And this is all based upon historical events where we've analyzed the numerology and Chinese astrology of past major disaster dates and seen if this pattern can recur in the future. And there are recurring patterns and combinations that lead to these events, and that's what we're going to have a look at today. The first thing we're going to take a look at is this chart that I've made for the numerology aspect of March 2023. Here we see a bunch of different numbers for the dates, color-coded in greens, blues, reds, and yellows, that simply represent special types of numerology patterns that have caused disasters in the past. And we mainly take a look and see if there's a strong presence of these particular numbers in each date's numerology. The blue and red numbers represent 1125 numerology, which is very, very important. The green numbers represent 1789 numerology, which is another pretty important pattern of numerology. And this one in particular, we only take a look at the 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 10th column, which represents the general numerology of a given date. And the yellow numbers represent special case numerology patterns and that kind of thing. When we take all that into account, we can come up with an idea of how significant the numerology is for each date. And you can see on the far left side of the graph we have this month's dates organized from top to bottom, where March the 1st is a green colored date, March the 2nd is blank, March the 3rd is blue, and so forth. And the color coding is like a level for each date, from 1 all the way to 5. Level 5 would be the highest risk, and that's a red color, which we do not have this month, which is actually a good thing. The most powerful numerology dates this month are March 7th, March 16th, and March 25th. They score yellow, which equals level 4, high risk. And then the green dates are what we consider medium risk dates. And there's quite a few of those this month, especially between March the 5th and March the 10th, between March 14th and March 18th, and between March 22nd and March 27th. The majority of of these dates got their risk from these 1789 numerology patterns. 1125 numerology exists for the month of March, but it's not significant enough to bring high risks. So we're mainly focusing on the yellow dates here that we have here and the green dates, mostly thanks to this 1789 numerology. And if you wish, feel free to pause the video so you can analyze the chart in full, so you can grasp, the significance of how these dates get added and how you find these numbers. And, to respect the numbers themselves, we do not reduce the sums to their single number form. Like, for example, on March the 3rd, 2023, on the first column, which is the month plus day plus 4-digit year, we left it as 13. We could have reduced it to 4, but 13 has its own special energy that's related to the number 4, but it's better to look at it as a 13. It's 3-3-2023, so 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3, that equals 13. That's how that number was found. And then the same goes for all the columns you see on the numerology, and at the top of each column you have the numerology sum that was used. So the first column is month, day, and year using 4-digit year. The second column is month, day, and year using 2-digit year now. The third column is simply the month plus the day. So in March 3rd's case, it's really just 3-3. So it's 3 plus 3 equals 6. The fourth column is the day number. What day number is March 3rd? It's the 3. So the 3 is right there. And then from there we go to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th column, where we just have different numbers such as day plus year, month plus year, the month number, which is just 3 for March, and at the last column we got the sum of the year. which in this case, since we're looking for 25 as well as 7, we could have both. 7 is the true sum, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3, which equals 7, but also the 25 if we add it in the non-standard way, which is what the NS stands for on the chart. 25 can be found if we do 2 plus 0 plus 23. And that's basically it. And one more thing that I'll add before we proceed. When it comes to this numerology chart, in general, from left to right, we have the importance of the sums as well. So the sums that are found on the left side of the chart, especially month plus day plus year, those are much more significant than, say, the numbers towards the right of the chart, such as the month plus the year, the month number, and the sum of the year. So what this means in general is that the sum of the year alone doesn't mean anything almost. You have to look at all the other numbers for each date and how these numbers combine with one another in the sums to determine whether the dates have numerology risks or they don't have numerology risks. Overall, the month of March looks fairly decent with numerology. It does not look like a really quiet month, but it does not look like a really active month either. So we can say this is just a fairly average looking month as far as numerology. So let's keep that in mind, because now I'm going to show you guys what the Chinese astrology looks like for this month. Behold my calendar. I call this my Chinese astrology calendar, where I've simplified what you can find on a lot of websites out there showing you the different elements and animal signs that exist for each day of the month. Many of you might think that Chinese astrology is simply the animal sign or the element of the year, which in this case is the year of the water rabbit. But we also take a look at the month, which in this case March 2023 is a wood rabbit month. And then the days also have their animal sign, and that's actually the most important thing here. This is a snapshot of the cycle that we're in. Chinese astrology is all based on cycles, and it's existed for thousands of years. And that set order just keeps recycling itself into the future. It's an endless cycle where it repeats every 12 and 60 years. It repeats every 5 months of each year, or every 12 months rather. And it also repeats every 12 days and every 60 days. The reason I say 12 and 60 is because there's 12 animal signs and there's 5 elements, which yields a total combination of 60. And in this case, we have March the 1st, which is an Earth Horse Day, followed by an Earth Sheep Day, followed by a Metal Monkey Day, and a Metal Rooster Day on March the 4th. And that continues forwards until we get to March 31st, which is an Earth Rat Day. And that cycle just keeps going into April. And we're not going to have another Earth Horse Day for 60 days. So sometime in May, in early May, or very late April, we're going to have another Earth Horse Day. And that's how the cycle just keeps repeating. And it's actually very complex. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, every March 1st is going to be an Earth Horse Day. Not accurate. Next year it's going to be something completely different. It could be like a Water Pig Day, for instance. It depends. Wherever the 60-day cycle begins and ends, that's what dictates the start of the next day. So that's, in a nutshell, the Chinese astrology cycle. March is a rabbit month, which means April is the following sign to the rabbit, which is dragon. And then snake would be May, and so forth. And the elements also advance with that. So this March is a wood rabbit month. March 2024 is going to be another rabbit month, but it's not going to be wood anymore. It's going to be the following element, fire. And in general terms, how do we use this for seeing whether a date has risks or not? Well, just like in numerology, based on historical events from the past, when we look at dates that have had natural disasters of significance in the past, and we see what animal signs and elements were present on the day, the month, and the year that event happened, we can see what kind of combinations there are and what kind of patterns can be found. And there are patterns. In fact, Chinese astrology teaches us actually that we have to look for combinations of compatibility, and that is the basis of everything, from feng shui to fortune telling to compatibility, all that. And it all boils down to how the animal sign of the day combines with the month and the year. If there's a harmonious compatibility between the three, the day is considered a peaceful day with a low risk for something happening. If the day animal is in a bad relation with the month and the year, or both, that equals a clashing compatibility, which is a negative combination that can lead to disasters. Turns out most major disasters that have happened in the past happened on days that were in a bad combination with the month and the year. So that's how we're going to look at this. We are not going to go too in-depth into this because otherwise it'll take hours, but just keep in mind that, we can say how good or bad a day is each day this calendar month, depending on how the animal signs combine. I'll just use 2 examples to give you an idea. Let's take March 4th, for example. That's a metal rooster. The metal element does not combine with the wood element in the positive way. So that right there is a clash. The rooster and the rabbit are opposites. And opposites equals negative in Chinese astrology. So March 4th is actually a pretty negative combination for the animal sign of the day and the animal sign of the year and the month. So this would get the highest rating in Chinese astrology. From 1 to 5 again, I would give that day a 5 as far as risk goes, because it's a pretty bad setup. On the complete opposite side of the coin, we got a day like March 6th, where it's a water pig day. The pig animal sign is actually compatible with rabbit, and the water element combines with the wood element and the water element in the positive way. This day checks out as being a really good day, a very positive day. So, in theory, the chance for natural disaster or any other negative events would be low, unlike March 4th, where it would be high. And that's basically how I use Chinese astrology to see which days could have certain things. Now, when we take all this into consideration, now we can combine them and come up with this thing right here, which is something I've shown in previous videos. This is my astronumerology chart for March 2023. Here we're taking a look at everything and combining it. In the bottom part of the chart, we have blue lines and green lines, which relate to Chinese astrology and numerology. Remember the numerology chart where I showed you that March 7th, the 16th, and the 25th scored 4 out of 5 as the riskiest numerology days this month? On the chart, you can see the green line peaking on the 4th, on the level 4. There's a scale on the left that goes from 0 to 11, but you can see it at the level 4. We have a peak on the 7th, the 16th, and the 25th. That's the numerology risk fluctuation you see there. And then Chinese astrology is the blue. Remember how I just mentioned March 4th was actually a high-risk day as far as numerology that deserves 5 out of 5? You can see the blue line peaking there. Actually in the 3rd as well. We have a 5 for the Chinese astrology on March the 4th and the 3rd in the blue line, before it just drops and goes back up and down, up and down, up and down again. And you can see March 6th is at the bottom there, where it's about 1, which is a low risk. So March 6th a good day, March 4th a bad day as far as Chinese astrology. March 7th, not too good day with Chinese astrology or numerology. So those two peaks converge there, and then that's why you have a higher peak on March 7th in the yellow-orange line. And the yellow-orange line is the main product out of all this you're looking at here. Wherever you see the yellow-orange line rise above that horizontal gray line that's set at level 6 that splits the graph in two, that's when we have a risk date in general, because the combination of numerology and Chinese astrology was enough for that date to climb to level 6 or higher for its total risk. That's where risk dates begin, and level 6 is considered where low risk begins, and from there it just climbs upwards. Towards the end of the month, there's another line that you see there which relates to tropical zodiac. That's mainly just a seasonal indicator that tends to make the second half of March a little riskier than the first, but it only can add 1 extra point, so the effects are minor. Mainly, we really depend on numerology and Chinese astrology. And thanks to this rise and fall of the yellow-orange line, we can actually see where we have groups of risk dates or we have single risk dates. So March 1st through the 4th is actually a risk period. Where the 4th is the final day of that period. Before there's a 2-day break of March 5th and 6th, and then we have another peak on March 7th, the one that I mentioned just now, which peaks at level 8. And March 7th is actually a pretty risky day too, because it's up there in risk. That's followed by March 9th and 11th, which are very low risk days, level 6. They barely cross the threshold. And then we have another powerful period, which is March 15th through the 16th. 2-day risk period that's well above, the risk category, reaching up to level 8.5 on the 16th. Then we have March 19th, which is another single risk day, kind of similar to March 7th. We have also a longer risk period now, which is March 21st through the 28th. There is a brief pause on March 26th, but due to the nature of the other dates surrounding March 26th, you can see that on that day, very briefly, the graph just dips below level 6. But even on the same part of that day, we could already have increasing risk thanks to the peak on the 27th, which goes up to level 8. So basically, the break is too short to consider it a break. So in reality, we're looking at a period that's longer, March 21st through the 28th. And then finally, we got March 31st, which actually continues a period into early April. So that's the start of the period. And that's the basic fluctuation that we see here with Chinese astrology and numerology's risk for these dates. That's how we're able to pinpoint which days of the calendar this month have risks for natural disasters and which days are actually the most risky ones. Just looking at this graph, I can tell you March 7th is one of the riskiest times. March 15th through the 16th is one of the riskiest times. And we could also say March 21st through the 28th and even March 31st. Those are among the most significant risk periods. And that's why we have them in those colors like orange, yellows, and reds and purples, relating to more intense dates. Whereas March 1st through the 4th and March 9th through the 11th are more on the lower side of things. They're still risk dates though. But yeah. So you might be wondering, all right, cool. Now we know which days this month have risks for natural disasters based on the numerology and Chinese astrology. How does this actually help us make a prediction for what can happen? That's where the fun part begins. We can actually analyze this graph and I can tell you what it means. Generally, when we have a group of dates, meaning back-to-back risk days, the most likely event that'll happen when we have days like that are weather events, or events that last for days. Severe weather events, flooding events, tropical cyclones tend to happen during these periods that involve more than one risk date. And it makes sense because these disasters tend to evolve over time and it can take a few days for them to manifest and last for that long. Whereas the single risk dates, such as March 7th and March 19th, we have only one day where something could happen, supposedly. We look more towards sudden natural disasters. Sudden events involve earthquakes, landslides. And if we talk about weather, we could talk about very short duration weather disasters, such as tornadoes. Thanks to that, I can tell you which dates on this chart are more likely to have certain events. So for example, March 1st to the 4th, we could have severe weather events. Whereas March 7th, we could have a quick tornado or an earthquake. We could have a few other earthquakes on March 9th and 11th. But since March 7th is more powerful, March 7th could actually have a major earthquake. March 15th through 16th, it's a 2-day risk period. It could have a short duration weather event like severe weather outbreak. But we could also have an earthquake, especially where we see a sharp fluctuation from bottom to top or top to bottom. In this case, both days qualify, 15th and 16th of March. March 19th is another earthquake possibility kind of day. March 21st through the 28th, here we can say it could be a longer duration weather event. Probably a flooding disaster, probably several severe weather events. We could even have a tropical cyclone in the southern hemisphere during that week of significance. There are earthquake possibilities as well. And this usually happens once again where there's a sharp fluctuation from one day to the next. So March 21st looks like a possible event date. March 25th is another one where it drops real quick and then it rises right up again on the 27th. And the 28th it drops off again. So there are earthquake potentials here on March 21st as well as March 25th through the 28th. And then March 31st could also be an earthquake day, since there's a big fluctuation going there from the 30th into the 31st. And even though that continues into April, the first day of that risk period can have a disaster like a sudden event. Which brings me to another thing I wanted to show you guys. This is the month chart for last month, February 2023. The reason I want to show you guys this is because on February the 6th, 2023, there was a catastrophic earthquake sequence that struck Turkey and left over 50,000 people dead in Turkey and Syria. It was a massive disaster. Happened on February 6th. Using the same methods, we came up with this graph. And you can see that basically on February the 6th itself, we were having a giant risk period that was just starting. Such a massive risk period with almost no breaks in between that can be just considered one really long risk period, February 6th through the 28th, which actually continues into early March. So the period that we're in right now actually is a continuation of the February 6th through the 28th. Take a look at the fluctuation that was going on right around February 6th. We had a lesser risk on the 5th of February. We climbed up into the threshold on February 6th, and then it shot up all the way past level 9 on February 7th. That's at the start of the period too. That's a huge change in the fluctuation of this disaster energy, as we can call it. And that's right where the earthquake hit. So this is a really good example of why these beginning and ending dates for these longer risk periods can also be considered big earthquake time windows. And now that we're looking at March once again here, let's go ahead and make some quick predictions and assumptions as what can happen in the coming days. So here we go, guys. Let's take a look. Alright, so for the first prediction that we can make based on what we have seen with the dates and the risk periods, this is for severe weather. This is a world map showing the parts of the world where we can see severe weather, including tornadoes. And what we have here are locations that have been shaded or circled in different colors. Light blue and green corresponds to low risk and medium risk areas around the world where we can see this event. But the ones that are going to be most likely to have this event are the orange shaded areas as well as the red. As you can see here, the bullseye is really over the United States, the south central US. There's some parts of the world, including southern Europe and parts of Southeast Asia and Australia, that could have yellow risk areas, so basically medium high. But red is the really risky area where we can see these events. And on the bottom of this map we have dates. This literally shows us even what days of the month we can actually see the bad weather. March 1st through March 4th is in orange, which is medium chance of having this scenario. March 7th is in red. That date actually favors a severe weather outbreak pretty well. The 9th of March and the 11th feature a low risk for this scenario. And then we have a red colored dates of March 15th through March 16th. Another really interesting time frame where we could see another big severe weather outbreak, in my opinion. Followed by the 19th of March, which has a medium chance of having that type of event. And then we have another really risky period, which is March 21st through March 28th for severe weather and tornado outbreaks. And then we have March 31st in the medium chance again. The prediction is as follows. A severe weather outbreak is likely this month, especially around March 7th, March 15th through the 16th, and March 21st through the 28th. Those dates favor this type of scenario the most. And we should be on the lookout in case the weather conditions become favorable for tornadoes and severe weather as we approach these dates. In my opinion, the riskiest time frame would be March 15th through the 16th and March 21st through the 28th. With March 7th also being a fairly likely day for this event scenario. So let's keep an eye on the locations of the world that can have severe weather for these dates, because I think that's what we could be seeing during that time frame. Now take a look at this one. Now we're going to talk tropical cyclones. There are parts of the world that have tropical cyclones this time of year, and actually this time of year, March, is the peak season for tropical cyclones in the southern hemisphere. These are the parts of the world that are likeliest to have these events. Mainly we're looking at the areas shaded in green, orange, and red, where orange is actually medium risk and red is high risk for these events at these locations. We're talking about Southeast Africa, Madagascar especially, and then we have parts of Australia in the north side of the country, as well as the islands to the east of Australia in the region known as Oceania. Includes places like Fiji and Vanuatu, which we have shaded in red and orange in this location, which is a very hot prime zone for these kind of events. Tropical cyclones, likely of major intensity, could happen in these world locations, especially around the dates of March 15th through the 16th and March 21st through March 28th. In other words, the slightly longer risk periods of this month that are fairly intense favor the tropical cyclone scenario the most. So the prediction would be as follows. A powerful tropical cyclone is likely in Southeast Africa, Madagascar, or around Australia and Oceania, especially during the time frame of March 15th through the 16th and March 21st through the 28th. This event's also possible around March 7th, March 4th, and March the 31st. It is less likely to happen around March 9th, March 11th, and March 19th, but we should still keep an eye out on those days just in case. But primarily, we're talking about March 15th through the 16th and March 21st through March 28th. Those two time frames are the most likely to have this scenario. And any tropical cyclone that forms during those dates is likely to crash into land areas along this part of the world that's shaded in orange or red. They are fairly risky dates for this possible natural disaster. So we should keep an eye out on these world areas around these red dates primarily. And then last but not least, this is the earthquakes now. We could make a prediction for earthquakes as well, based on the data that I've shown about which days are riskiest. And here the colored dates change up a bit. Remember, earthquakes are considered sudden natural disasters. So now the more sudden event favoring dates become the likely ones to have a possible earthquake. The world areas most likely to have earthquakes in this map would be the areas shaded in orange and red. Areas shaded in blue and green are also possible locations, but we're mainly worried about parts of the west coast of the Americas, especially Central America and South America. And also along the Middle East, which is where we had that devastating event in February. After having those major earthquakes striking Turkey, basically that entire world area around the Turkey area, including Turkey itself, the Mediterranean, as well as other parts of the Middle East, including Iran. We got to keep a close eye on that world area because it's very risky to have another major earthquake in that region. because it has recently had major earthquake activity. Parts of Asia are also at fairly high risk, including the Philippines, parts of China, Japan, and definitely around Indonesia, which is a very high risk zone as well, and also parts of Oceania as well. These world areas are most likely to have a major earthquake around March 4th, March 7th, plus or minus one date, just to account for possible error margin. March 7th being the likeliest date for this event to happen then. We have also a fairly good chance of having an earthquake, although maybe a little weak on the weaker side, maybe more like towards magnitude 6 on March 9th and March 11th. We also have a pretty good chance of having a major earthquake during March 15th through March 16th. Once again, a very high risk for earthquake on March 19th, plus or minus one day. A lesser chance between March 21st and March 24th, and then we have a medium chance for this event, March 25th through March 28th, as well as March 31st. The dates in yellow and red here favor the earthquake scenario the most. It is more likely that we could have a major earthquake around March 7th, March 15th through the 16th, March 19th. Those three risk periods are likely to have an earthquake over magnitude 6.5, probably over magnitude 7. And the effects could be damaging. Those are the dates that I would say we should watch out for a possible major earthquake around the world, especially in these regions shaded in orange and red. The yellow dates are also fair game for another possible event of another strong earthquake, especially March 4th, March 9th, March 11th, March 25th through the 28th, as well as March 31st. And that's where we can have this event happen around the world. So let's keep an eye on those earthquake risk areas during these upcoming days this month. And that's basically what we can predict based on numerology and Chinese astrology and how we can interpret the risk dates thanks to this. So guys, I'll leave you guys with this. Feel free to go back through any parts of this video to analyze the information that I've given, as well as these world maps showing the risk areas. Let's keep all that in mind. I hope you guys found this video useful. And let's just hope for the best. Hopefully no major disasters will happen this month. And hopefully this month will be much quieter than last month. But it's better to be prepared, just in case. Thanks for watching, and I wish you all a very good and safe month of March. Goodbye.